Mr. President, the Americans I talk with are tired of Obamacare rhetoric. They are worried about the Obamacare reality. And what is the reality today? The reality is that Obamacare is unraveling at an alarming rate. There appears to be a very real danger that without structural changes, there may be entire states with no insurer willing to sell plans on their Obamacare exchanges in 2018. We're talking here about 10.8 million Americans who buy health insurance for themselves or their families on the Obamacare exchanges created in each state as a result of the law passed in 2010. And what we're saying is there are whole states where these 10.8 million Americans may have no options to purchase health care with Obamacare subsidies. This unraveling is happening sooner than anyone thought and will require us to act both in the short term and in the long term. If we don't take action in the short term, many Americans will have fewer options and no relief from skyrocketing premium costs. If we don't take actions to address the longer-term structural failure of Obamacare, we could have a complete collapse of the individual insurance market. And again, what we mean is that you may be living in a state where you cannot buy health insurance if you rely on an Obamacare subsidy. The reality of Obamacare today is alarming even for those of us who've been critical of the law and its thousands of pages of regulations. Before Obamacare even became law, Republicans warned President Obama, and we warned Democrats in Congress that Obamacare was bad news for Americans. In February of 2010, more than 6 years ago, I spoke for Republicans at a White House summit on health care and warned President Obama that premiums for millions of Americans with individual insurance would rise under his proposal. I was right about that. Republicans warned that Obamacare would increase the cost of health care, that people would lose their choice of doctors, that policies would be canceled, that people would lose jobs, that taxes would go up, and that Medicare beneficiaries would be harmed. We were right about all that. Today, an alarming number of health care insurance companies are leaving Obamacare exchanges. Americans are being forced to pay much more in premiums for the same health plans next year. This might be what Republicans predicted, but it's happening even faster than we imagined, and no one is happy about being right. Unfortunately, I don't need to look any further than my home state of Tennessee to see how bad things have become. When Tennesseans woke up on August 24th and read the front page of our state's largest newspaper, they saw this headline: "Very near collapse." The story wasn't about a bridge or about a foreign dictatorship. Very near collapse was our state insurance commissioner and her description of the Obamacare exchange in Tennessee, which more than 230,000 Tennesseans, 250,000 Tennesseans, used to buy health plans last year. What does very near collapse mean in the real world? This November, when Tennesseans signing up for 2017 Obamacare plans, there'll be fewer plans to choose from. They'll be much more expensive. That's what it means. And this picture will be the same across the country. Next year, Tennesseans will be paying intolerable increases, on average between 44 and 62% more for their Obamacare plans than they paid last year. Even for a healthy, 40-year-old, non-smoking Tennessean with the lowest priced silver plan on Tennessee's exchange, premiums increased last year to $260 a month. Next year, it's $333 a month. And if you, the policyholder, don't pay all of that, then you, the taxpayer, will, because a large portion of Obamacare premiums are subsidized with tax dollars. And surely, it's no valid excuse to say that just because taxpayers are paying most of the bill, that justifies having a failing insurance market where costs are so out of control that we may soon have a situation where no insurance company is willing to sell insurance on an Obamacare exchange. Tennessee had to take extreme measures to allow these increases because insurance companies told the state, if you don't let us file for rate increases, we'll have to leave. And if that happens, Tennesseans might have had only one insurer to choose from. That's what's happening in states all over the country, Mr. President, as Obamacare plans and rates gets locked in for next year, for 2017. According to the consulting firm Avalere Health, Americans buying insurance in 1/3 of Obamacare exchange regions next year may have only one exchange to choose from. People buying on Obamacare exchanges will have only one insurer to choose from in the entire state in 5 states next year: Alabama, Alaska, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Wyoming, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation. The same Kaiser Family Foundation report found that a growing number of states that have multiple insurers have only one insurer selling policies in a majority of counties. Tennessee is one of those states. Last year, Tennesseans could choose Obamacare plans between at least 2 insurers in all 95 counties in the state. For the 2017 plan year, next year, it's estimated that 60% of Tennessee's counties will have only one insurer offering Obamacare plans. In other words, no choice. North Carolina has also experienced a dramatic reduction in options under Obamacare. Next year, 90% of counties in North Carolina are estimated to have only one insurer offering Obamacare plans, up from 23% of counties last year. A similar picture exists in West Virginia, in Utah, in South Carolina, Nevada, Arizona, Mississippi, Missouri, and Florida. Just last week, the Concord Monitor, a newspaper up in New Hampshire, published an article with a headline, quote, "Maine Health Insurance Cooperative Leaves New Hampshire Market Reeling from Losses." The story goes on to describe how the Maine-based Community Health Options Insurance Plan will no longer be operating in New Hampshire after experiencing over $10 million in losses in the Obamacare exchange over just the first 2 quarters of this year alone. This move will leave 11,581 individuals in the Granite State looking for new health plans. Political reports that one Arizona county is poised to become an Obamacare ghost town. Those are Politico's words, because no insurer can afford to sell health plans on the region's Obamacare exchange. That leaves 9,700 people in Pinal, Arizona, with no Obamacare plan options in 2017. Mr. President, millions of Americans need relief from Obamacare. Here's the action that's needed. First, Americans need immediate relief from the cost of health insurance and the lack of options on the Obamacare exchanges. We should do that by giving states more flexibility to give individuals and their families options to purchase lower-cost private health insurance plans outside of Obamacare, and we should do that now. I intend to offer this legislation that would provide that relief. That is only to deal with the emergency of next year, of 2017. Second, we need a big structural change in order to avoid a near collapse of our nation's health insurance market. If there's a Republican in the White House next year, we need to repeal Obamacare and replace it with step-by-step reforms that transform the healthcare delivery system by putting patients in charge, giving them more choices, and reducing the cost of healthcare so that more people can afford it. But if there is a Democrat in the White House, broad systemic structural changes will still be necessary. Republicans didn't create this problem, but we're prepared to solve it. Democrats want to spend more taxpayer dollars to prop up the exchanges. They want to expand the role of government in your private health care decisions. In an article last month in the Journal of American Medical Association, here's what President Obama wrote, quote, "I think Congress," said the president, "should revisit a public plan to compete alongside private insurers in areas of the country where competition is limited," unquote. Of course, the president's proposal means more money and more government. But Republicans know, and Americans have seen over the last 6 years, that more money and more government are not the solution. They are the problem. We saw the problem ahead of time. We warned about it. We criticized the poor regulations that made a bad law even worse. Now we're ready to take action. We're ready to do something about this emergency, both for next year, 2017, and for the longer term.